some of you, and probably a lot of you already know, that FTX is a crypto exchange, and it was touted as being one of the safer, better ones, bringing kind of regulation to the market, helping things become normalized in the crypto world. And a lot of you probably saw in the last 2 weeks, Sam Bankman-Fried, who was the founder of it, he is 30 years old. He was valued at a net worth of $26 billion, was the founder of this, and had a very quirky character. This has all gone to zero now. Sam is now effectively worth nothing. FTX has been sold to his competitor company Binance, and there has been a ton of issues, and the FTX token has become worthless.
Yeah, and isn't there also and we don't know, we're like 130,
and they're missing a ton of money. There's billions of dollars that are just like unaccounted for. His other company as well, Alameda Research, which is like what he used to do his
money laundering.
Money laundering also went to zero. So I'm more going to explain what happened from my understanding, just so you can kind of get it. So again, this is a crypto exchange going missing again. My thing I want everyone to consider as I'm saying all of this is our actual banking system isn't that far off of how these things work. The only difference is there's a lot of regulation and there's a lot of public backing on the big banks that help to keep them alive and kind of get through it. And the government's involved. So when the big banks start to go under, they step up and throw in the extra dough. Anyways, so Sam Bankman-Fried, he was in his 20s. He was a big crypto guy, started FTX, blah, blah, blah. Everything's going great. About 2 weeks ago, he fired a bullet at his competitor, Binance. Binance is another crypto exchange, but they're based overseas. And what he said basically was, what it was is they were both going into DC to work on regulation.
Okay.
And Sam was like, oh, can Binance even come? Because they're based overseas in China. I think it's Japan. Someone's going to correct me on that immediately, but they're based overseas. So he basically made a little jab like, oh, Binance can't even come to this. Like, haha, right. We are the legitimate one. Binance isn't.
This was just a matter of weeks ago?
Yes.
Ooh, those Twitter fingers will get you in trouble every time.
He went from $26 billion to $1 in a week.
Shouldn't have pressed send on that one.
Yeah.
Tweet, whatever it is.
So Binance and them have been in competition for a long time. They did not take lightly to this. Just so happens that 2 days after he makes this tweet, accounting documents from his firm Alameda Research get leaked. So obviously Binance had somebody on the inside and has been waiting for this moment.
Allegedly.
I mean, all allegedly. They released these documents showing that basically most of the value in these businesses was in FTX token. So what they're saying is the FTX exchange and Alameda Research, which were valued at $50 billion, a large percentage of it was actually just in the FTX token that they held. So that'd be the equivalent of saying like a billionaire like Elon Musk, a big portion of his wealth is in Tesla stock. So if Tesla stock went to $1, Elon Musk would go from whatever he's at now, 200 billion, down to probably like $1 billion because 95% of his wealth is tied up there. So they're saying these companies, basically 95% of the value of these businesses is tied up in this FTX token. But that also means that if you're a shareholder in, or if you have money within one of these exchanges, the way they intend to pay you back is if you're calling to withdraw your money, they have to sell their FTX token to pay you back and give you your money back when you withdraw.
Gotcha.
When Binance saw this, they said, oh, we've lost faith in FTX token. So we're going to go ahead and dump all of our FTX token.
Ooh. And
the second they dumped that, it dropped the value of the FTX token. People who use FTX as their platform to trade all start losing confidence that they're going to be able to make their withdrawals. They start withdrawing money. And all at once, in the course of like 2 or 3 days, $7 billion starts getting withdrawn. The token continues to plummet, which
so they
is bringing
couldn't sell
more
and then
attention
pay
to
out.
it.
Yeah.
Then they can't sell and pay people out. And so then they put a halt on withdrawals from the FTX platform, saying they're meeting liquidity issues.
That's the equivalent of you going to your bank and them closing the old shutter and saying no more withdrawals.
Yeah.
Which is something we talked about over in China was happening with some of these smaller banks. And that has been both a real and imagined huge collapse throughout history. This idea that, oh my gosh, what happens if I go to the bank and I can't access my funds?
Binance's CEO, I think it's Changpeng Zhao, known as CZ Online, then took his opportunity to step in and buy out FTX. And so he purchased his greatest competitor. So this was this was a battle of the CEOs.
Twitter fingers, they will get you.
And one guy, Sam, got a little bit cocky, made a tweet, and CZ jumped on it and absolutely crushed him by devaluing all the assets that they carried, which was in their FTX token, which lost all the consumers' confidence within that exchange. They withdrew all their money, putting them in a full liquidity crunch. Now, there's a bunch of missing money, effectively, because obviously the token's effectively worthless, so they can't even, like when they would have had to submit, because they were getting involved with regulators, they would have had to submit that, like, look, we have the ability to pay back the people that are putting money into our platform, but they would have been valuing it based off the FTX token, which is now worthless. And the reason that a bunch of the money was lost to make up the difference, too, is that they were making risky trades with the money that was being deposited. So they were taking the money and bankrolling it through Alameda Research, so the crypto exchange never showed any issues because Alameda would buy the money from them. And so, long story short, they lost a bunch of money on some really crazy trades on top of all of this. So they were already short to begin with. Then the FTX token went to zero value. So a lot of people will likely get beat up, but Binance is stepping in. And I think Binance's whole intent is to show that they can back everyone's portfolios they had held in that platform, and again to help try and bring some regulation and some confidence back to the consumer. But
this is also to draw another analogy would be if one major nation currency holder kind of overtly attacked another currency and saying, hey, we now believe that currency to effectively be worthless, and then everyone tries to immediately withdraw their funds from that currency. That's going to further devalue the currency until, if they have any supposed holdings, like the banks won't be able to issue, the currency won't be able to cover.
Of course, as the news and the media is absolutely decimating Sam, one of the quotes that he said, which it makes him sound really bad, is I assume my clients had no leverage. So he's assuming that everyone who had deposited money into his trading platform were doing it all from cash holdings that they carried. So there would never be this requirement to have them pull it all out at once or have big, large withdrawals. And he's saying, I assume that no one had leverage. But if anyone knows anything about trading, any of the big traders that are involved do carry leverage to have the money in there to make their trades. That's how they make their money. It's similar to how we use leverage to buy real estate. They use leverage to buy stocks, and they're doing the exact same thing. So anyways,
all of those leverage, anyone who was leveraged to buy that stuff, probably also those leverage things would have called their notes and be like, hey, you got to pay us back now too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it has a compounding effect. And this is what happened in 2008, right? Like the leverage is what bit all these little banks in the ass. This one hit for me because I always actually thought Sam was a bit of a genius in some ways. Just by going through kind of following how he got to where he did. He's just, I don't know if anyone knows, like he started by basically trading in the discrepancies between platforms. So he was making the difference because when crypto came out, you could go on one platform and it'd be $10,000. You go on the next one, it's $10,200.
Right.
Because there was a delay and there wasn't a centralized system that was making sure it was all the same. And so he was using computer software to trade that difference and make the $200.
Yeah.
And I was doing that in university as well. But he scaled it up, built a software, and made it crazy, and obviously was making a fortune. And then he started the FTX.
Probably by leverage.
Exactly, through leverage. And he then built the FTX platform from there. One of our producers here, Mark, just mentioned that Kevin O'Leary just went on record and said that he would still work with Sam. What do you think of that? I have an opinion, but I'll let you say yours first.
I mean, like these guys who come up with this stuff, they're kind of like weird level geniuses, and with that comes some level of eccentricity that could get you burned from time to time. Like, and that whole industry seems to attract those types of people, right? Like there's always like a smarter, quicker shortcut. There's always a gap. There's always a spread. And while that's the same thing in all trading, it is hyperbolized in the crypto space, it seems. And I think you can ride these things to great summits. So Kevin O'Leary being like, I would bet on that guy again. It's like, well, yeah, because those are the sort of bets that it's like a buddy I know threw $75 on the Detroit Pistons to win their conference. I'm like, that's a terrible bet. And he's like, yeah, but it would have paid out $17,000 on a $75 bet. Like, so Kevin O'Leary saying that he would roll with this guy again. I mean, he's not a dullard, but I think he just got he overplayed because these guys have massive egos. They do rely on these little shortcuts and like, oh, well, we thought of something that's way smarter than you guys. Like, we have this company valued at this because it holds all these tokens, and now we're going to pump the system up so the tokens are worth a lot. So the company, ergo, is worth a lot, even though the company maybe doesn't have any tangibles. Yeah, so like I would ride with that guy again, but you need to be mindful that the wheels could come off, and they came off in a major way.
I was going to say, there's a risk in any investment. I'm with Kevin. I think I would work with Sam again. To what you said, it kind of takes a genius to even hype a company to that level. And it's even more impressive, I think, to hype a company to that level within that industry, because it can be more difficult in some ways. Less competitive sometimes, but also I think to get people's confidence to actually invest and put that much money in.
Especially now.
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot. So yeah, I think that quirkiness, like you said, it plays into it. But I think a lot of people in a lot of industries have to do the same thing, and you kind of just keep faking it until you make it. But I've always felt this way with money. Like, if you believe in yourself well enough, you can go out, and if you can get other people to believe in your game, you kind of just keep working your way up, and the smaller issues get sunk and pushed away. Like, it's like you don't need to perfectly do something to achieve and keep moving forward. Like, if you can kind of get it down pat, and then you can convince somebody to give you money, whether it's a bunch of people below you or one person above you, then you get to make that next step.
Yeah.
And so he did that on both ends.